Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, and that means Writers Chat. And we are so glad that you're here with us. If you're here in the community right now, we're just very appreciative of that. And if you're watching the replay, we thank you for that too. My name is Johnny Alexander. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Melissa Stroh and Brandy Bro. And Brandy's going to introduce our very special guest today.
Yes, I am so pleased to introduce Anne Harrison to you. And let me tell you a little bit about her. Anne Harrison is the author of The Spirit of Creativity, Inspirational Poems for the Creative at Heart. She's currently working on her first young adult series entitled Spirit Writer Society, along with a poetry book and a devotional for writers. She is also a freelance editor. And we are very happy to have you with us today. We would love to hear about your writing journey, which you have titled The No Excuse Writer. Please share with us.
Hey, am I unmuted?
You're all good and ready to
Yes,
go.
you
Okay, good.
are.
Because I was thinking I was gonna have to hit that okay button on the thing. Anyway, so as Brandy said, my name is Ann Harrison, and before I get started, let's open up with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father,
Yeah.
thanks for bringing us all here together today. May my words be pleasing to you, Lord. Give me the story that you would like me to share with these people, and share my writing journey, not for myself or for the people, but to glorify you. All these things I ask and I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so I started writing when I was in middle school. Our school, the Georgia Academy for the Blind, we did creative writing contests. That's what got me started, but I had quit and I tried writing stories in high school, and I ended up dropping them off because I found a book that I was really interested in, and I just quit doing it then. But then I was listening to after my first, when I got married years later, I was listening to on audiobook, which, well, everybody else calls it audiobook, but the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Handicapped now calls them talking books, and it was New Stories of the South from 2001, edited by Lee Smith. And she had a student that said she couldn't write. And then as she illustrated how, she had the student tell her what she had done that Saturday in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then she had illustrated how the student could write that. That's what really got me intrigued in writing a story. Well, that story, that was not that was not what God wanted me to write. And I didn't realize that until I realized what a mistake it was. Because I went with a vanity publisher. I'm gonna tell you the good the I'm not trying to get into the negative, but I will say, and I've done vanity publishing twice. And I'm gonna tell you, if you're thinking about that, you might want to run for the hills because they're gonna charge you a lot and do a little. Um, but anyway, then I started writing, and then once that book got dumped, I wrote another book called A Journey of Faith, um, which was supposed to be a mystery, but it wasn't it wasn't one of my best books. And I made that same mistake, less price, but still not a lot of editing. And when I saw how bad things were, I pulled it. And then I tried to rework it. I'd reworked that book several times. I'd even published it so I could do a book signing on my own. And then I just pulled it. And so I rebranded it, tried to rebrand it so that I could, to a psychological thriller, and then try to do just a Christian thriller. And God said, no, I want you to write for kids. So my idea of writing a mystery got flipped on its head because the research was grueling. Um, and so that's why, and I started out with middle grade, but the more I got into the story, the more I learned about the characters, and it's speculative fiction at that. The more I learned about the characters, learned about their supernatural abilities, and worked with God to put together the first draft. I'm still working on that book, but I'm having to add some things because now that it's young adult, it is, I've got more wiggle room to work on it. And then the poetry, I always said that I can't write poetry. Uh, but then a friend of mine who her name was Jen Lowry. She has a podcast. She had a podcast at the time called Jen Lowry Writes, and she did a prompt to write a 50-word story. Okay, so this is how God works. That 50-word story did not stay like that. It morphed into the poem, which is called Mermaid Fingernails, which is in my book. That's one of the poems in my book. And then I ended up writing 3 poems that day because as I was trying to do a lesson in the free course called the 21st Century Creative, as I was reading the information, these poems, God just kept giving me these poems. So, and that's why poetry is not as hard to write as it used to be for me. And that's why I start the book with, I can't what? You know? But even through all of that, I was writing in a place of emotion because I had been bullied in school. I had been verbally and emotionally abused, and I thought, well, I'm okay. I may have anxiety, but I can deal with this just fine. God said, no, you've got a problem. You need to address it. And it's not that God can't take care of the anxiety on his own, but sometimes the issue is not just in the heart and in the spirit. Sometimes it's in the brain. Okay. And so that's why God led me to get the help I needed, get the medication I needed. And once I got that problem solved and got over my anxiety and found out that I wasn't okay at the time. I didn't know how bad off I was until I was out of it. You don't know that you're not okay until you are okay. And God
True.
can use these medicines and these other things. God can use those as a tool. God is the source. Everything else is a resource. And since that time, my writing has changed. My writing has grown. I put together most of the second poetry book, which I am calling Time and Seasons. And then I was at a 540 Writers Community networking session, and God just all of a sudden said, I need you to write a devotion to go with this poetry book, a devotional. I'm like, what? Wait, Lord, I don't know how to do this. And he gave me the foundation. I put the verses in, I put the tentative titles with Bible verses. And then 2 years ago, I know I'm going back and forth, and I'm sorry this is not linear,
Oh, that's all right.
but 2 years ago, God told me to join Christian Book Academy, which, if any of you know about that, it's it's the membership that CJ and Shelly Hitz owns. And I'd been listening to the Kingdom Writers Conference. The Kingdom Writers podcast. I went to the Kingdom Writers Conference, Courageous Writers Edition, which was about collaborations. And because I had been on her group on Facebook for a while, but I hadn't really been active. But then I went there and she told us about Christian Book Academy, and I kept hearing about it on the podcast, and they would put the mentoring sessions on the podcast, and I would go to the conferences. God said, I want you to join Christian Book Academy. I said, Lord, I can't afford to do this. And I don't know how accessible it's going to be. And I only had one screen reader on my laptop at the time. And so I tried it and it wasn't accessible. And I advocated for that, and I prayed for God to make a way. But since I got this desktop, my tech guy, who is also totally blind, I put JAWS on the computer but then he put the JAWS is job access with speech, by the way. And he put NVDA, which is non-visual desktop access, is what that stands for, as another screen reader I use. And he also put a program on there for me to toggle between the two screen readers. So I use them interchangeably. Christian Book Academy was not accessible with one screen reader, but it is with the other. And I paid for a workshop on how to write a 21-day devotional. And with it, I get a free month of Christian Book Academy. And I tried to do it with JAWS. It wasn't accessible. I said, okay, Lord, I can't do this. God said, keep trying. Try with NVDA. And lo and behold, I'm in it now. And I am going to, sorry, my phone. I'm also going to get this scholarship because I do have a partial scholarship for people with low income. So, and it is an investment. Since I turned 50, even though I have a teenage daughter and I love doing things for her, I'm like, you know what? Um, I wish my phone would hush. Sorry. Um, it's like I need to do something for me. I need to invest in my writing career. I love the 540 writers community, do not get me wrong, but this I needed because I needed the instruction and the motive and the exercises that really surprised me about my own writing. And so I needed that. And it's just, and it's like there's trainings and there's celebrations for milestones. And it's a good investment in your writing career. So that way you can learn what God really wants you to do. And so that is why now I feel more motivated, not because of one or the other group, but because God has pushed me into places and put me in places I never thought I'd be. I never expected. And so that's where I am with my writing journey right now.
Excellent.
I know that was short, sweet, and to the point, but
Well, one thing that I'd like to mention is that, this is a common everyday thing for you that you deal and you don't think about it much and you being blind. But everybody else, of course, will look at you and say, okay, you're blind. How do you write? That's, I know that, I have a special needs daughter and the way that she is the way she was born. That's just how she is. She doesn't think anything different. She doesn't know anything different. So she doesn't think much about her differences. But other people see her differences. So other people will look at you and they'll see, well, you're blind. How do you do this so well? Because people that can see well and can see the words, they're like, I struggle. And they may look at that and say, goodness, your topic is a no excuse writer and you just persevere and persevere and persevere. And that is a fantastic thing that I see in you over and over. And I know a lot of people will probably be like, well, how do you do the things technically? You talked about screen reader. So obviously you need to have some kind of interface in order to be able to get to where you are now and the kinds of things you're writing.
right.
Can you talk a little bit about that for people that may not understand your world?
Okay. A screen reader is basically it's text to speech output using different synthesizers. And yes, my speech is fast, but if you want me, and I can slow it down temporarily, or even if I don't, I mean, if you want me to, but I can actually illustrate because it picks it up. That's why I put it on. See, what I do is I hit with JAWS, I hit the insert space and I hit S, full speech, and it said full speech.
Yep.
And then if somebody were to chat, it would read it to me. Ask Becky. Becky knows I've it's been bleeding into convert to 540 stuff before.
Yep. I think that you just really prove that if you want to do something and God has given you something to do, that there are tools out there to help you do that.
Right.
We have somebody in the chat that commented having blurry vision that hinders her. She worries about her future ability to write. But you're legally blind and you write.
Yeah.
So
But
it's not,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say there is the JAWS for Windows. I pay a yearly fee for that, but there's also a screen reader out there, like I said, NVDA, which is non-visual desktop access. It is a free and open source screen reader. And there's also screen magnification software.
Mm,
That it's called Fusion and it's JAWS and Zoom text, but it's a little bit more expensive. But I mean, and I'm sure Windows has, and even the Mac. If you're on a Mac, you don't have to buy a screen reader. You automatically have one on your thing called on your computer called VoiceOver. And I don't know if you heard my phone when I got a call, but that's what I use on my phone is VoiceOver, which is Apple's speech software. And that's there's a different there's a different keyboard commands. And I thought about getting a Mac at one time but it would have been a whole different learning curve for me
It
than
is.
Windows
Yeah.
they're the key commands are different. There are certain things that don't necessarily work the same, but I mean, so I use different devices, and I do have the e-reader, which is a braille display. I don't have it over here, um, but I can get it and show you if you can hang on a second if you want to see it.
If you would like to, sure.
Okay, hold on. Okay, and this I have it on a case, but this is what, and I don't know if I'm angling it right.
Yes, we can see.
And then I don't have it on right now, but I can turn it on and you can, and it's got this starting coming up, and you can see the little the dots, the
Yep.
spinning. Yep. And then I just open a document. My Bible, I have a copy of the King James Version of the Bible on here. I have other books that I read. I can also use it to read with my phone. And if I connect it to my computer, I can use it via USB. But I find that when I do that on the computer, um, it slows me down.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually just use the speech. I was doing that when I edited. And when I would do line edits, I would use the Braille. But now I do content edits more so, and I just use my speech. And a lot of times, like with grammar errors or filler words,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell when when there's a filler word or when something is a little bit off.
Yep.
And I can also tell developmental issues too. That's
Yep. That makes sense.
huh? I'm sorry.
That makes sense because that's content and yeah.
Yep. And you and I are also in the Christian pen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
Christian Pen is
Proofreaders and Editors
Christian
Network.
and Editors Network. Thank you. Yeah. The
Yeah.
Proofreaders and Editors Network. Yep.
Yeah.
Sophia has a question. She says, "Hey, Anne, love having you here. Can you share how authors and content creators can make our work more accessible for folks with visual impairments? I honestly don't understand some of the prompts for images and SEO words and et cetera, things like that, that I'm supposed to attach to stuff that I post."
Okay. Now the SEO keywords, I'm not that. I mean, I've written articles about it, but that doesn't mean I'm there. But the alt tags or alt text is basically you describe the image. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, like if there's a certain color, or you can say, for example, a person wearing a white shirt, or a person standing in oh, I'm not good at some of these images, but I mean some at giving you the best descriptions. But like I saw a post on Facebook in a group that I'm in, and my phone with voiceover described the picture as a black purse on a white door, hanging on a white door. I mean, you can do just a simple just describe what's in the picture. Does that make sense?
It does. Alt text is describing the image. And like if you're putting an image on something, there's often a little space for alt text that's specifically for things like screen readers and the visually impaired.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just as an
What
add-in,
about,
Oh, go
yes,
ahead.
please go ahead, Melissa.
I was going to say for those who use WordPress as an add-in, like if you load an image up to your WordPress site, you can go into your media settings and click on the image itself, and there will be some adjustments on the sidebar, and there you'll see your alt text option, and then you can go and type in the description of the image there, and then every time you use that image, that alt text is connected to that image on your site, so then it's capable for those who need it for the visually impaired. So yeah. there's a little helpful hint for those who do WordPress sites and need that.
And also social media. I don't know about X because I'm on X, but I'm not a. You can do an image description on X, formerly Twitter, but I don't do it as much. But I know on Facebook and Instagram, you can get maybe an image of text and such on the background. And then on my phone, if I'm on my phone, um, there's a rotor setting called actions on the voiceover. And I can flick upward. I can do a flick up once with my finger, and I'll flick up till I find explore image. I can double tap on that, and it'll tell me and it'll describe the image for me if there's any specific descriptions.
Yep.
And then
Can you
there's
share with us
also,
some of your biggest challenges in writing and then some of your biggest successes or wins?
okay, the biggest challenge for me is pictures. People say, well, you need images on your blog post. If somebody
Mm,
sends me a picture and I get, Jaws has the screen reader, Jaws that I was telling you about, has this thing called Picture Smart. And I think NVDA has an add-on for it too, but I use the JAWS and I hit insert space and then insert space, which is puts me in the layered commands, the letter P for Picture Smart. And depending on where I am, if I'm on a web page, it's W, or if I'm in a dot, like I've opened a picture on my computer and then it's C for control, and it'll describe the images and it'll have, if you want more details, they use Chat GPT and Claude AI to give two different descriptions, and you can ask Chat GPT more about the descriptions. It's one of those things that they've actually enhanced through AI. But as far as creating images, that's something I cannot do. I cannot create images to save my soul. I can picture things because God shows me things. He doesn't show me images in color. I've never seen color in my life,
Mm.
but he shows them to me in texture. It's like I could almost reach out and touch the image.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. So that's one of your biggest challenges. What are some of the, I think Brandy called successes or
The
some real
biggest
positives?
successes, the
Mm-hmm.
positives, like for accessibility for the website, since I've transferred since my tech guy helped me migrate my site over from WordPress.com to a WordPress.org, it's easy to insert the pictures into the blog post if I have them. And the success is just being able to write using Word.
Yeah,
Google Docs is not my friend. Word is my friend, and the ability to edit these projects I do for the publishers I work for right now.
that's amazing. I mean, I think that's just really
Yep.
great that you're able to do that and to
Mm-hmm.
see it. All right. Do we have any more questions? Anyone see anything else? I don't think I've missed anything. Anne, is there anything else you want to share with us about your journey? I mean, not just about writing, but also just personal.
Oh, I am. I also, and I haven't done it as much, but I also love to crochet. So I also call myself a crochet writer.
I like that.
Haven't finished it, but I started writing a book called The Plot Stitch, a guide to crafting your story from inspiration to publication. A writer's guide to craft, yeah. And
Cute.
so when I do my fiction, if I don't outline, I do the bare bones kind of brainstorming.
Mhm.
When I go back through and do my first round of revisions, I will go through and I do what is called a book pattern instead of a book map because crochet projects have patterns.
Mhm.
So I figure, books should have patterns too. Your first draft, your messy first draft is your swatch draft. And your pattern, you break it down, your stitches, your see, I stitch plots together. Your stitches are basically your chapters and scenes and the elements that,
Mhm.
who are your main who's your protagonist, who's your main character, who are your supporting characters, what do they want, what's the conflict, or or the pivotal moment that moves the story forward and what changes need to be made. I mean, I've got a full template with various questions that I got from well, I don't use the one that she did. I created my own, but it was a template book map template in the book uh The Magic Words by Cheryl Klein, because she
Mm,
writes about writing kidlit and writing books for middle grade and young adult authors, and I got that recommendation from a class from the Editorial Freelancers Association called Introduction to Children's Book Editing.
mhm.
And that's where I got the book map. Well, she called it a book map. That's where I got the idea to do my book pattern template. And now, if I when I use it, I just do the basic questions. I don't go into all of the detail that I
Right.
put in the template because I tweak it to make it my own. But I have a template if people want it, and they can tweak it to make it their own as well.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful. Yeah, we would love to have that and we could put it up in the Writers Chat Facebook group if you don't
yeah, I
mind.
can. You want me to do
Yeah.
the Word or the PDF version?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Which one?
Probably the PDF, probably.
Okay, yeah, I
Thinking.
think I
Yeah.
still got it on PDF. I gotta look it
Okay.
up, but I will send it to Brandy. Or
Okay.
Brandy, want me to send it to you or Melissa?
Either one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. They both can pop it up there. So,
yeah, that's
well,
fine. I can
thank
do
you.
that.
That's very generous of you because that's an interesting way of looking at it. And, everybody's mind works a little different. And
Hmm.
I really do love just seeing all these different approaches to writing because I feel like we should just not, you can't try everything, but you should at least kind of be aware of some different ones and then make them your own. So you can come up with your own, just like you did, your own best way of putting a book together. I love
Yeah,
that. Thanks for sharing
yeah,
that.
you're
Thank you.
welcome. And another thing too,
That's
one
right.
thing I learned through Christian Book Academy was outlining, one of the things that they do is have you create an outline. And I kind of did it a little backwards. I started the devotional and then I created an outline. I didn't necessarily base it on um the book pattern, but I guess in a way I did it in a different style. And it's just a basic one just to kind of give me a foundation for what I want to add, and I know it's going to change. But um but that was one of those things. I started the devotion, then I wrote the outline. So I kind of did things backwards.
No, that's okay.
But hey, it worked.
I think
That's
that's
called
great.
reverse outlining. It's a thing.
It is a thing, and it actually
It is a
tells you where
thing.
it actually gives you an idea of where you need to go with your book, and it shows you what a mess it is.
Yeah, it shows you a lot of your plot holes.
Or your structure,
Hmm.
the issues with the structure of your nonfiction. Yeah.
hmm
Yep.
Wow.
So, Anne, do you write both nonfiction and fiction?
Well, I'm doing fiction, but I've actually started this nonfiction uh journey. It was not something that I do normally, but God said, "Let's do it," and so it's
Yep.
happening.
What
It's
about with editing? Do you edit both as well, or do you
I
lean towards one or the other?
I edit fiction primarily right now because I'm
Hmm.
not sure how to edit the nonfiction
Yep.
as far as that goes.
Yep. What are your favorite genres?
Fantasy. I'm not a big sci-fi fan. But I will read some sci-fi. But I'm not big
Hmm.
into space opera. But I've edited fantasy, mystery, um, contemporary Christian romance. I've done romantic suspense. I've even done a few historicals, though. If you get back before the Civil War, I've done one, but I prefer not to do those because
Hmm.
that can get a little tricky.
What do you find
Yep. Do
tricky
you?
about it? Is it the just not knowing the history
Not
itself?
knowing that, well, I'm familiar with the history, but if you talk about like when people have had slaves on the plantation, you kind of have to make sure you get that right. And I don't have time to do all of that
Mm-hmm.
research.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me cringe because I want to make sure that I'm telling the author the right thing to do. Oh, I've been editing for about 3 years now.
Okay. But
So
you're like you were talking about the Christian pen, and I know that that's like a certification kind of program or network, correct?
Yeah, you have to I'm a silver member. You pay $60 a year. It depends on what member you are in, but you have to do pass one of you have to have at least 3 years of experience as an editor, and you have to pass the test to be a member of a gold member
The
Okay.
gold
of the
level.
Christian
Yep.
Pen. And right now my budget is limited, so I'm like, okay, Lord, if you want me to do this, you're gonna have to help me. And I
Yeah.
haven't.
But for people looking for an editor, that can be a good place to start because they do have
Yep.
these levels and these requirements, I believe, right? Even for the beginning, don't they?
Um,
Oh, sorry,
Brandy,
that's
you
my
can
phone.
answer that one better than I can because I've only been for a
yeah,
little bit.
bronze and silver matters have members have a less of a requirement than the gold members. The gold members really are kind of have to prove their editing skills more. Um, but the Christian Pen Proofreaders and Editors Network has a good, it's a good resource. You can go there and look for different members. Those that are bronze members, I don't remember if they're listed on the site or not. Um, I think they might be. It's been a little bit since I've actually looked at, the listings for all of the members. But if you need an editor, yeah, you can go there and check out who is there because it will also list the editors and then what types of editing they do, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, and then more details. And for a lot of members, they have web pages on there. Not everybody does, but a lot of them do. So it's a great place to find an editing resource.
I do know that the bronze members are not in the pen loop.
That's true. The bronze members are not in we have the Christian Pen has a kind of a resource community that we connect with each other and we'll ask feedback from each other sometimes. Editors can sometimes get stuck on a specific part of an
Oh yeah.
editing piece, and then we'll throw it out to the other members. Say, hey, I'm kind of stuck on this. What's your opinion? Or do you know where this is? And we kind of help each other out a little bit. So it's a nice community. So when you get a Christian Pen editor in the silver or gold levels, you know that they have a support network behind them to make sure that they're getting things done right if they have a question about something.
Yep. I've edited. I haven't done it but one time. But when I was working for Celebrate Lit Publishing, I edited an epistolary novel. It was a novel written in letters back in World War II. First time I've read a couple of them, but the first time I'd ever edited it, and I'm like, I was gonna turn it down, but I'm like, no, I need to learn it. And that was an interesting, and yeah, I had questions about that too that
Hmm.
I put up in the pen.
In the pen, yep,
Yep,
yep.
that was an interesting process. But there was one book I got that they sent me, and it was like it was take took place in Ireland. And when I was reading through the first chapter, and I'm like, I cannot do this because I didn't even understand the story. I mean, it was in English, but it was like, okay, what in the world? I don't, there's really not much of a setting.
Yeah, Melissa's over here smiling because all her books are written in that.
I'm not saying anything about the Irish books because I've read some good ones. Melissa, I'm not judging anybody, but that particular book, and I don't even remember the name of it, that particular book, it was like, this is not and I just told her I didn't feel like I was a good fit for it. I kind of
Totally
looked
understand.
at the book to see if I'm a good
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah, totally understandable. Yeah, if you're not familiar with the culture and the history, that can make it a real
Even just
challenge
the
in the editing
words.
department. Yeah, yeah, even the words.
Yeah.
I,
I think that's a good thing though. Like if I had a freelance editor and they didn't think they could do it, I'd rather they tell me up front than just try to struggle through it.
Yeah.
More of a
absolutely.
mess of it really. Or,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
important to have an editor that you are comfortable with and that you
exactly.
feel understands your material.
In your work. So I kudos
Yep.
you for doing that really,
Yep.
I think. So
Yep. I greatly appreciate those that are willing to say,
mhm.
thank you for
Not for
considering
me.
me, but I'm not the best fit for you.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
they'll
there's
find the
another
right one.
question in the chat.
Yes.
Leslie would like to know how you got started in podcasting?
Oh, I didn't even talk about that. I am so sorry. Okay. So again, if you'll give me a second, I'm gonna put this up and I'll be right back.
Sure. Catching up with the chat over here.
Yes, me
Yeah.
too.
It's just humming along.
Okay. So again, I have to give the same podcaster I gave credit to earlier. I have to give her credit because I was on her podcast back in March of 2019. And I told her that I felt like God was leading me to get into podcasting, but I didn't know, how to go about it. And I was on another podcast called Ask Win, and Win Charles said that she uh helps people launch their podcasts, and she has cerebral palsy. Anyway, but and I thought about that, and God's like, no, I've got a plan for you. And so Spotify, what used to be Anchor podcasts, which now is owned by Spotify, um, I downloaded the app so that I could get on with my friend Jen Lowry, yeah, um, to do the podcast interview with her. And so I was kind of playing around with the app, looking at it, and then I talked to another blind person who used it on Twitter at the time, and she said it was totally accessible. I'm like, don't know about that. I had to do some workarounds. But then I just wrote down a podcast plan and I did my first episode. It took me a bit to get it on the other platforms because Jen and I were doing a Zoom test. And I said, Jen Lowry and I podcast while trying out the Zoom software or testing the Zoom software, something like that, because I knew I was going to use Zoom for my interviews. And they don't, and Apple Podcasts does not like the word testing anywhere in your titles,
Mm.
episode titles, or anything. So I had to change it to trying out. But it took this frustration and anger and ugh. And I think that's where the anxiety came in because I was irritable and frustrated and got aggravated really easy. But anyway, God kept pushing me to no, try it this way. Look at this. It was at first I thought it was a logo, and it wasn't the logo. And then I did I looked at the title and I changed it and resubmitted it with everything, and it was fine. It finally went through. And then I had my YouTube channel for a while, and um sorry. And then I'm like, you know what? I got it when I was in college, doing my communications degree, which I actually was not able to get my associate degree due to several reasons. One of which was the computer that I originally bought um went completely on me, and then anyway, and then there was some stuff with the university and everything. So, but anyway, and I had that YouTube channel. I'm like, you know what? It's just sitting there. People are subscribing, and I'm not getting, and I haven't put videos up. So I I decided, I'm gonna put like when I do the interviews or when I do some of my solo podcast episodes, I decided to put them up on my YouTube channel as well. So, I did that. And that's why you can still go to like the podcast players and find the podcast. I still get people requesting for interviews, pitching me for interviews. Not as much, but I still get people pitching me for interviews, and I'm like, I don't do the podcast anymore. My friend Tish and I are eventually going to start another podcast of our own that's specifically on YouTube. But the reason why I'm not on Anchor anymore or Spotify anymore, because they're not podcasting made easy anymore. It's gotten convoluted, to say the least. But yeah, God had me doing podcasting for 5 years. well, almost 5 years, and then I started pulling away from it. But that's one of the best way that was one of the best ways for me to meet some of these authors that I had never, like Patricia Bradley,
Hmm.
Elizabeth Goddard. There's some devotional authors I've met. There's some just and I was kind of a little all over the place. I've even talked to SEO experts and business experts, and I honestly thought there was this one guy, and I looked at his videos and stuff, and I really liked him, but he was like he was a fitness coach. But I think he had written a book, and that's why I started talking to him.
Hmm.
And so, um, and yeah, I've had quite a few different people on there. But then I started focusing on children's books more the last few episodes. And so, yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
And people say I have a good radio voice, though my daughter hates it. Because I'll go, when you touch one life, you've touched thousands.
That's good.
Yep.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. So, Sally, I'm just going to read what Sally had to say. She goes, I
Mhm.
have my first three podcast episodes in the can, and I've uploaded the first to YouTube with excerpts to my Menopause Mix Up Facebook page. But I'm shaking in my boots on how to upload to all the podcast stations. I think I'm on the right trail, but wow, in the land of uncertainty.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but I think YouTube has a way to do podcasts. There, I would not recommend the Spotify unless you want to go through Riverside FM and all that kind of stuff, because they've changed the way they've done it. There are I mean, they're paid ones. I mean, there's some like Buzzsprout, Podbean, um, Pinecast, Libsyn, and there's Simplecast is another one. They're paid podcasting, podcast hosting
Mm.
sites, or you can do it on your own site, especially if you have a WordPress. There's a SSP, which is what is it? Super simple super simple podcasting, I think is what it was. I don't remember what the name of it is, but it's an SSP plugin, and that you can do that. But I would not know how to do that. I know the guy that I talked to, who is totally blind. He was going to set that up for me, but then God
Yeah,
pulled me away from.
definitely a huge learning curve.
Oh yeah, it is a huge learning curve, but you can do it through your website. But you may have to um pay for hosting fees that way. That there are so many different podcasting podcast hosting services out there.
Yeah.
It's like,
Johnny, you're muted.
Ruined my whole delivery by being muted. I said, I imagine Thomas Umstattd Jr. has a podcast for that because there's a, or a, what, yeah, there's a whole joke that he has a podcast for everything. But you might want to check out novel marketing
It's
and
true.
because he
and I
has,
think
he's
he has
covered
a
a lot of
Christian.
ground. Why don't we have everybody come back on? It's about 10 minutes till, and if anyone has anything they, want to ask Anne directly, this is your opportunity. We've covered a lot of ground. This is very interesting and a kind of a different aspect that, we don't always, I don't know that we've ever talked about as far as like writing with a blindness and the different
Mm.
tools that are out there. So that's really great. So hop back on. Next week, Tim Shoemaker is going to be with us. I'm very excited about Tim coming. He's going to be talking about writing for the YA audience. I've known Tim for quite a while. We met at Florida Christian Writers Conference several years ago, many years ago, and then reconnected in October when I went to the conference this year and attended his class. It was hilarious and fun and just very, he was just talking about writing fiction, but it was so good. And he read an excerpt from one of his books, which I had not read, and it was just so wonderful that I think I bought like three of them. So anyway, just a wonderful author and especially targets boys, writing for boys, but he'll be talking about writing for the young adult audience. So please come back for that. Anyone else have any
Oh, can I
questions?
quickly?
Anything they want to talk to Ann about?
Well, can I add something real quick? Because I forgot to tell you this.
Yes, please.
Okay, God has been working with me on my handwriting. People say, well, you're blind. You got blind stills. I mean, I had a friend of mine tell me this. Why are you handwriting? It is my prayer language. It is not perfect,
Mm.
but God, first I was taught how to write my name, and it was really, and I was told to practice that, and oh my gosh, that is the most boring, grueling. Feels like you're standing at the foot of a mountain that's 90 miles high and 50 miles wide, and there's no way you can get up at the top of that. Anyway, but God said no, because I was listening to a podcast called Powerful Whispers,
Oh,
and the
love that.
Krista Krista Joy Spieth, she was one of my authors on the podcast, and she was talking to this art therapist. And the art therapist was suggesting that you hold the color pencils or whatever art tool you're going to use, and draw. And as you draw, move your body in the direction of your drawing. She said it may start out in little circles, but then you may discern shapes and stuff like that. So I started drawing things. I even did that before then, because I got a notebook and a pen, and I would draw elements that I saw in my head. They may not have looked perfect in the notebooks, but I would draw these elements that I saw in my fantasy world. And so then I started writing just slowly. God just says, okay, we're going to write now. And so ever since then, I love my notebooks. I have a pouch with color pencils. I have some number two pencils. I have a few pens in there, and I keep a pen and a notebook in my pocketbook so that I
Mm.
can grab it and take it to church with me to write down nuggets from the sermons at church. And so, and it's not that I can read the writing. I mean, I could probably use an app on my phone to distinguish the handwriting, but I don't necessarily have to read it. It's like that motion of drawing
Mm.
letters.
Yeah.
It it adds to, and I may not remember what was said in a 540 workshop or a conference or something like that, but it's like the motion of it. It builds that muscle memory. It's like it solidifies it into my brain so that even though I don't remember the words that I wrote, I remember the concept and I can apply it to like editing, for instance, or whatever writing I'm doing. And I journal that way.
Interesting. Because that just affirms some of the research that's out there that when we write something down, it helps us remember it.
Okay.
Hmm.
I just read yesterday on a thread on X, Twitter, um, that there are like 16 areas of your brain that light up when you write by hand that does not happen when you type.
Mm.
And it
Interesting.
actually, if I can remember I'm not going to remember exactly what the person was saying, but handwriting and intentionality seem to go together. So if you handwrite goals, they are often more likely to happen than if you type it. That typing does not relate the same way. So I thought I saved it. I bookmarked it because I thought it was so fascinating when I was reading it yesterday and sort of was thinking I need to start writing more by hand, you know.
Mm.
I want to start writing more by hand.
Have
So
to write your
anyway,
book like,
yeah.
and you don't have to write your book like that, though some people
No,
do. You can use that as journaling. Like I said, that's my prayer language.
exactly.
I'll write my prayers that way.
And Pam said taking notes by hand at workshops and conferences. I do the same thing. I never use a laptop to do note taking for anything really.
I
I
can't
want
type
to
on
be
my
able to draw circles and go different places. So anyway, yeah, I think that's really pretty cool. So thanks for sharing that too. That's
phone.
wonderful.
There's one more thing that was in the chat that I wanted to share while we were still on the recording.
Okay.
Rachel said, Anne, you said you see with texture.
Oh
This
yeah.
means writers need to keep this in mind if they want to be more effective communicators to those who are hearing impaired. Most of us tend to lean heavily on visual description, and you remind us to drum up the other senses. touch, hearing, taste in our writing. Can you give us some examples as to how you see, experience some specific things, including color, but you said you really don't see color, and tell us how we can better describe them in our writing to benefit people that are like you and maybe don't have the visual senses that are quite so strong.
Okay,
Great
and Rachel and I
question.
have actually talked about this on 540 before. Um, One of the things, and well, color word association has been one of the things that I was taught when I was at school. But I found out that the words that I was taught to associate the colors with aren't necessarily true. But like to me, blue, even though blue is like a calm, soothing color, it's also soft. And I know they say yellow is soft, but blue is like a comfortable fleece blanket. Red is like a cherry, or if it's bright red, it's a hot flame.
Mm.
A bright pink is like a flame that's doused a bit. That's the only way I can describe it. Green is like the leaves, the sound of rustling leaves.
It's my favorite.
Um, um, and then red is also the sun. Purple, I'm not sure how to describe that one. Um,
Mm.
but blue is also like the white, even though you can see everything, like my shirt's white, you can see everything that gets on white. But white is also like a fluffy cloud.
Mm.
That's what I associate white with. But orange and gold and brown, those are fall. That's fall. The sound of those colors, the sound of leaves falling, um, the crisps in the winter. If you want to do seasons and sound and texture, um, if you want to do the season of winter, I have wind chimes on my porch, or not on my porch, but in my yard. And in the summer, the volumes are slightly muted. It's lower volume because of the humidity. But in the winter, oh my gosh, the crisp dinging, ringing of the chimes. I can tell you it sounds cold out there, and I'm sitting in here.
Mm.
Some people may not
Mm.
understand that, but it's the sound of the crisp sound, clear ringing of the chimes.
It kind of reminds me of synesthesia, where you
Mhm.
use other senses that cross into that help describe other ones. Yeah, I have certain days of the week that are colors to me.
And that's
Mm.
what I've been looking to, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole with that because I have a character in my novel. She's a synesthete. That's her natural ability. That's her supernatural ability. She can hear sounds. She can listen to the air. She can feel the atmosphere in a room. She sees things, but she doesn't use her visual. I mean, she sees things normally, but where Becca has that supernatural ability of seeing shadows, her twin sister has uses her other senses, and she can even smell danger.
Mm.
Mm.
And I'm curious. I mean, I may not be. I don't know if I'm a synesthete because it's rare for blind people to be synesthete. I knew a guy who's totally blind. He could taste musical notes.
Wow.
Mm.
I've never done that, but I can hear the sound of winter in my wind chimes.
I love that. No wonder you're a poet, though. I mean, that's
Yep.
poetic.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
James Hannibal, I think that's his name. He's a Christian author and he's a synesthete. And I think he's going to be speaking at the Florida Christian Writers Conference this coming October. I think he's on the faculty list there. Just plug that. And Catherine, you said in the chat about speaking this weekend. Would you like just go ahead and share that for everybody? Miss Lang, wasn't that you?
Sorry, I was harassing Brandy,
Okay.
um, because somebody needed to. I'm just trying to figure out why she's eating a planet. Yes, I'm
Oh,
very
stop.
excited.
Wait, why she's eating a planet?
Oh, because when I was little and I ate spaghetti squash, it was so strong in my mouth that all I kept coming up with was this tastes like the planet of Hoth. I just it just that's what it tasted like to me. So yeah, I put that in the chat and people commented. And the planet of Hoth is a Star Wars planet, just in case you're
Yes.
not plugged into
Yeah, but I'm
that.
like, wait, what? You can eat a planet? No.
Yeah, yeah. My son ate wasabi almonds and he just kept coming back with the word int. So,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, yep, there you go.
Oh, that's
Anyway, go
writer
ahead,
brain. That
Catherine.
is so writer brain.
Yeah, that would be an example of synesthesia.
Catherine.
Yes, please, Catherine.
This is an online summit. It is a gift to Christian women. There is no cost for you to attend. And it is an international group of women that are going to be speaking about resilience and pushing forward and pushing through. And I'm just very excited to be a part of this event and would love for you to join us and to share this. The lady that is hosting it has been going through a very trying time, and she has an amazing testimony and amazing resilience of her own, and just felt like this is the time and this is what we need to be doing. So I'm excited to see what God's going to do in this event.
All right. So someone asked if you have a link, and I think she put it up higher, Leslie, and I laughed at it, but I was trying to laugh at Pam's comment above it, and the laugh ended up in the wrong place. So I was not laughing at that comment, Leslie or Catherine. Okay. No, I was not. My thing jumped at the wrong time. All right. Well, listen, everybody, it's been great. Thank you so much, Anne, for being here today and for sharing with us just this very different
Mhm.
aspect. And this has been a very fun conversation.
But
So
I'm coming
thank you
next
for
week.
that.
I'm coming
Remember
next
to be
week.
here next week for Tim Shoemaker. And if you are not part of our Writers Chat community, we do invite you to join us. We would love to see you any Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. Go around the globe, find your time zone so you're here on time. And you feel free to join our Writers Chat Facebook group. Also, check out our Writers Chat Facebook page and our Writers Chat YouTube channel, which has all of our episodes, over 300 at this point, and counting and growing. So, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Stay around for the after party. Bye bye.